Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, I've got 3 chilling stories that'll make you think twice about using Craigslist, or any online marketplace, for that matter. We've all bought or sold something online, and most of the time, things go just fine. But every now and then, a simple transaction can spiral into something much darker. These stories are based on real events and are a good reminder that you never know who you're dealing with. If you enjoy spooky true stories like these, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. Now, grab a blanket, settle in, and let's get started. Story 1. The man who bought more than tools. The sale. David was the kind of guy who liked order. His garage reflected this. Neat rows of tools hanging on the walls, each carefully organized by size and type. He had spent years accumulating drills, screwdrivers, wrenches, and power tools for various projects around the house. But now, with a big move coming up, it was time to let things go. David and his wife, Marie, had accepted new jobs in another state, and they were downsizing. Less stuff, less stress, Marie always said. David agreed. Most of the tools had been gathering dust anyway, so he decided to sell a few things on Craigslist. One afternoon, he sorted through the garage and chose a set of tools he could live without. A well-used drill, an old but sturdy hammer, some screwdrivers, and a power sander. Together, they were probably worth $100, but David didn't want to haggle. He listed them for $80, a fair price, he thought. Within an hour of posting, David's phone buzzed with a notification. It was a text from an unfamiliar number. "Will you take $50? Cash." David rolled his eyes. He hated lowball offers. "No thanks," he replied. "Price is firm." Minutes later, another text came through. "I'll take them for $80. Can I come by tonight?" David felt better about this one. The buyer's message was polite, and they were willing to pay the asking price. He agreed, shared his address, and planned to meet them outside the garage at 7 p.m. But as evening approached, David couldn't shake a nagging feeling. Something about selling things online always made him uneasy. There were stories on the news, robberies, scams, and worse. He reassured himself that he'd be careful. The meeting would happen outside, in daylight, and the tools were nothing special. Who would go to extreme lengths over some old tools? Still, as a precaution, David told Marie about the sale. "I'll be outside for a few minutes," he said as she prepared dinner. "Shouldn't take long." She smiled. "Be careful, though." The early arrival. At 6:30 p.m., half an hour earlier than agreed, the doorbell rang. David frowned. He hadn't been expecting anyone yet. He peeked out the window and saw a red car parked on the street. It was an old, faded sedan. One of those cars where the paint had started peeling off the hood. A man was standing near the front steps, hands shoved in his jacket pockets, shifting nervously from foot to foot. David opened the door, leaving the screen door locked. You're a bit early," he said cautiously. The man looked up and flashed an uneasy smile. He appeared to be in his 40s, thin but tall, with hollow cheeks and bags under his eyes. His clothes were worn, a black hoodie, faded jeans, and scuffed boots. There was something about him that made David instinctively uneasy. "Sorry about that," the man said, his voice raspy. "Traffic was better than I thought. You still got the tools?" David hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, let me grab them from the garage. Meet me around back." The man gave another strange smile, wide, forced, with no warmth behind it. "Sure thing." David closed the door, locked it, and grabbed the tools from the garage. As he walked outside, he noticed the man waiting by the driveway. The red car was still running, its headlights casting long beams of light onto the pavement. "You can turn your car off," David called out as he approached. "No need to leave it running." The man shook his head. "Oh, I'm not staying long." The renegotiation. David set the tools on a small folding table he'd set up in the driveway. "Here you go. $80 like we agreed." The man stepped forward and inspected the tools without touching them. He squatted down, peering at the drill, then at the power sander. For a moment, he didn't say anything. The silence stretched, and David's discomfort grew. Finally, the man stood up. "You know what? These tools aren't worth $80. I'll give you 20 for them." David blinked. "What? $20? That's all I'm willing to pay," the man said, his voice flat. David stared at him in disbelief. "We already agreed on 80.
That's the price.
The man shrugged. Suit yourself. 20's all I got. David shook his head. Look, I don't need to sell these that badly. If you're not gonna pay 80, forget it. The man's expression changed. For just a moment, his smile dropped and something dark flashed in his eyes. Frustration, maybe even anger. All right, fine, the man muttered. Guess I'll head out. Without another word, he turned, climbed into his car, and drove off. David watched as the red sedan disappeared down the street, a lingering unease settling in his chest. The red car returns. That night, after dinner, David sat on the couch watching TV. Marie had gone to bed early, leaving the house quiet except for the low hum of the TV. But around 10:30 p.m., something caught David's attention. Headlights flickering through the living room window. His heart sank when he peeked outside. It was the same red car, parked across the street. David's first thought was that the man had come back for the tools. But why now? He didn't like it. He turned off the TV, hoping the house would look dark and empty. Maybe the guy would leave, but he didn't. The car sat there, its engine off, its silhouette dark against the curb. After 20 minutes, David called the non-emergency police line. I had a Craigslist buyer earlier tonight, and now he's parked outside my house, David explained. It's making me uncomfortable. The dispatcher assured him they'd send a patrol car through the neighborhood. By the time David checked again, the red car was gone. Relieved, he double-checked the locks, turned off the lights, and headed to bed. The knock at the door. At midnight, David woke to the sound of knocking. It wasn't the polite knock of a friend or neighbor. It was loud, insistent, and desperate. David's pulse quickened. Marie was still asleep, so he crept to the front window and peered out through the blinds. His stomach turned. The man was back. He was standing on the porch, shoulders hunched, hands in his jacket pockets. Even from the window, David could see his face, pale and hollow, lit eerily by the glow of the porch light. Hey, the man called, his voice muffled but clear. I've got the $80 now. I'll take the tools. David's instinct screamed at him. Do not open that door. Go away. David yelled through the door. I'm calling the police. The man didn't move. Come on, he called back, his tone shifting, less polite now, almost mocking. Just open up for a second. David grabbed his phone and dialed 911. As he spoke to the dispatcher, he heard something that made his blood run cold. The sound of metal scraping against wood. He rushed back to the window just in time to see the man climbing onto the porch roof, trying to reach the second-floor window. Someone's trying to break in. David hissed into the phone. But then it happened. The man's foot slipped, and he lost his balance. He fell hard, landing in the bushes below with a sickening thud. Moments later, red and blue lights lit up the street as the police arrived. The arrest. The officers found the man writhing in pain on the ground, his ankle clearly broken. But that wasn't all they found. When they searched him, they discovered a large hunting knife in his jacket pocket. The man confessed that he had planned to break into the house to rob David and, if necessary, threaten him with the knife. It was supposed to be easy, he muttered to the officers as they loaded him into the patrol car. The aftermath. David was shaken for weeks after the incident. He couldn't believe how quickly a simple Craigslist sale had turned into something so dangerous. The tools were donated to charity the next day. David never wanted to see them again. Marie and David decided they'd never sell anything online again, no matter how harmless it seemed. To this day, David gets chills whenever he sees a red car parked outside his house. Because, as he learned that night, you never really know who's on the other side of the deal. Story 2. The Room with the Locked Door. Finding the perfect place. After a tough breakup, Mike needed a fresh start. He had spent weeks bouncing between friends' couches and cheap motels while looking for a place to live. By the end of month 2, he was exhausted and desperate to find something decent that wouldn't drain his bank account. One night, while scrolling through Craigslist listings, he came across a post that seemed almost too good to be true. Room for rent, clean, quiet, affordable, $500 per month. Includes utilities. The photos looked great. The house was clean and newly renovated, with modern appliances, a tidy living room, and a spacious kitchen. The ad mentioned a roommate named Aaron, who seemed laid-back, mid-30s professional, quiet, keeps to himself. Mike hesitated at first. Craigslist could be a gamble, but with options running low, he texted the number in the ad. Within minutes, he got a reply. "Hi, Mike. Happy to meet tomorrow. I think you'll love the place. Aaron." The first meeting. The next evening, Mike drove to the house. From the outside, it looked far older than the photos suggested. The paint on the siding was chipped and peeling, and the front steps creaked when he stepped on them. An ancient oak tree loomed in the front yard, its branches twisted like gnarled hands reaching toward the windows. Mike paused. Something about the house felt off, but then again, most old houses did. Before he could knock, the door opened and Aaron appeared. He was in his mid-30s, just as described, tall, lean, and clean-cut, wearing jeans and a simple gray sweater. He smiled warmly. "Hey, you must be Mike. Come on in." Inside, the house was exactly like the pictures, modern and spotless. The hardwood floors gleamed, the furniture was tasteful, and the kitchen looked like it had never been used. It was such a sharp contrast to the outside that Mike couldn't help but comment, "You've really kept the place nice. I didn't expect it to look so new." Aaron chuckled. "Yeah, it's a bit of a fixer-upper. The previous owners renovated everything inside but left the outside untouched. Adds character, don't you think?" Mike nodded, though he wasn't sure character was the word he'd use. Aaron showed him around, the shared bathroom, the kitchen, and the guest bedroom, which was cozy but clean. There was just one thing that stood out, a locked door at the end of the hallway. "What's in there?" Mike asked, trying to sound casual. Aaron's demeanor shifted ever so slightly. His smile faltered before he quickly recovered. "Oh, that's just the basement. It's unfinished, kind of gross. I keep it locked so nobody has to deal with it." Mike accepted the explanation. After all, basements could be creepy. No need to wander down there. By the end of the tour, Mike was convinced. For $500 a month, this was a steal. "I'll take it," he said, shaking Aaron's hand. The first week. At first, everything went smoothly. Aaron was a quiet roommate who mostly kept to himself, just as promised. He spent most of his evenings in his room or out on the back porch smoking cigarettes. The house was peaceful, and Mike found himself settling into a routine. Work during the day, TV in the evenings, and sleep by midnight. But by the end of the first week, things began to feel strange. It started with small noises at night, soft footsteps in the hallway, faint creaking that Mike chalked up to the old house settling. But the odd part was when it happened, always at 2:30 a.m. One night, Mike woke up to the sound of the floorboards outside his room creaking. He froze, listening as the footsteps moved slowly toward his door. Then they stopped. Mike sat in bed, heart pounding, staring at the faint outline of his door in the darkness. After what felt like hours, he heard the footsteps retreat, moving toward the locked basement door. And then, nothing. The next morning, Mike saw Aaron at the kitchen table, sipping coffee like everything was normal. "Hey, did you get up last night?" Mike asked, keeping his tone light. Aaron looked up, surprised. "Nope, I was dead asleep." "Why?" Mike hesitated, studying Aaron's face. There was no hint of deception, but something about his expression, maybe the way his smile didn't quite reach his eyes, made Mike uneasy. "Nothing," Mike muttered. "Just thought I heard something." The behavior gets stranger. Over the next few nights, the noises grew worse. Mike would wake up at exactly 2:30 a.m. to the sound of footsteps. But now, they didn't just stop outside his door. Sometimes, he'd hear breathing. Slow, steady breathing, just on the other side of the door, as if someone were standing there, listening. One night, Mike decided to confront Aaron. When the footsteps stopped outside his door, Mike grabbed the baseball bat he kept under his bed, swung the door open, and nothing. The hallway was empty. The only thing out of place was the faint smell of cigarettes lingering in the air. The locked door. Mike's breaking point came the following weekend. He woke up around 3 a.m., drenched in sweat, with the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The house was silent, but a faint glow spilled into the hallway from under the locked basement door. "Someone's in there." Mike grabbed his phone and crept out of his room, the floorboards groaning under his weight. He stood outside the basement door, staring at the thin line of light. Slowly, he reached for the doorknob. To his surprise, it turned. The lock was undone. Mike's heart hammered in his chest. He pushed the door open and was hit with a wave of cold, damp air. A narrow wooden staircase led down into darkness, illuminated only by a single light bulb swaying overhead. He descended carefully, his phone flashlight cutting through the gloom. At the bottom of the stairs, the basement opened into a large, unfinished space with stone walls and dirt floors. And then he saw it. In the far corner of the basement, partially hidden behind an old sheet, was a makeshift bed, a filthy mattress surrounded by cigarette butts, empty food containers, and piles of clothing. Nearby, a rusted shovel leaned against the wall, next to a half-buried pile of something that looked like dirt or ash. Mike's blood ran cold. Someone had been living down here, and that's when he heard footsteps, fast, heavy footsteps, pounding toward the basement from the back door. Mike bolted up the stairs, his flashlight swinging wildly. He burst into the kitchen just in time to see Aaron's silhouette disappearing into the woods behind the house. The escape. Mike didn't stick around. He grabbed his keys, his wallet, and whatever else he could fit in his backpack before sprinting to his car. He didn't stop driving until he reached a friend's place an hour away. The next day, Mike called the police. When they searched the house, Aaron was gone. The basement was exactly as Mike had left it, mattress, shovel, and all. But what disturbed Mike most was what the police discovered after investigating the property's history. The house had been abandoned for nearly a decade before Aaron moved in. Multiple complaints from neighbors had led to its eventual demolition a few years later, and during the teardown, authorities discovered human remains buried under the basement floor. The police never found Aaron. To this day, Mike has no idea who or what Aaron really was. But he swears one thing. Every night at 2:30 a.m., when he wakes up for no reason at all, he feels like someone is standing just outside his bedroom door. Story 3. The Fake Seller. The search for a TV. Tom wasn't looking for trouble. He just wanted a cheap TV. He just moved into a new apartment and was scraping by after paying rent, deposits, and other fees. The place was bare bones. A mattress on the floor, a second-hand coffee table, and a microwave that buzzed like a chainsaw. What it didn't have was a TV, and Tom was desperate for one. Watching shows on his laptop just wasn't cutting it anymore. But Tom didn't want to spend a fortune, so he turned to Craigslist. It didn't take long to find what seemed like the perfect deal. 42-inch Samsung TV, $100. Works great. Need gone ASAP. The ad included a few grainy photos of the TV. It looked clean, and $100 was a steal for a name brand screen. The seller, someone named Mitch, had written, "I'm moving and can't take it with me. First come, first serve." Tom texted the number in the ad immediately, talking to Mitch. Within minutes, Tom got a reply. "Hey, TV is still available. Can you pick it up tonight?" Tonight? Tom frowned. It was already dark outside, and the drive was about 30 minutes away in a less than stellar neighborhood. Still, it was hard to pass up such a deal. "Sure," he replied. "What's the address?" Mitch's responses came fast. 123 Harrow Street, Red House. Door will be open, just knock. I'll be here. That gave Tom pause. Who just leaves their door open for strangers? He decided to clarify. Door will be open? You mean unlocked? The reply came almost instantly. Yeah, haha. I'm home. No worries, man. Come on by. I'll keep the TV ready for you. The messages felt overly enthusiastic, almost desperate. But Tom shook off the unease. He figured Mitch was just one of those guys who didn't have time for formalities. Besides, a great deal was a great deal. He grabbed his jacket, slipped a $100 bill into his wallet, and headed out the door. The Red House on Harrow Street. By the time Tom pulled onto Harrow Street, the neighborhood looked even worse than he'd imagined. Most of the streetlights were either broken or flickering, and many of the houses were run down, with boarded-up windows and overgrown lawns. The Red House stood out, just as Mitch had described. Its paint was faded, and the front steps sagged in the middle. But the porch light was on, and sure enough, the front door was slightly ajar. Tom parked his car and sat for a moment, staring at the house. This feels weird. He considered turning around, but then he thought about the TV. You're overthinking it, he muttered to himself. He grabbed his wallet and stepped out of the car. As he approached the house, Tom noticed how quiet everything was. There were no sounds, no traffic, no people, not even crickets. Just the faint creak of the porch steps beneath his feet. He knocked on the door. Nothing. Hello? Mitch? Tom called out. There was no answer, but inside the house, he heard a noise. A low, rhythmic creaking sound, like something swaying back and forth. Tom knocked again, louder this time. "Mitch?" Still no reply. The door, already ajar, shifted slightly with his knock, opening wider. Stepping inside, Tom hesitated. He didn't like the idea of walking into someone's house uninvited, but Mitch had said the door would be open. Maybe he was in the back room or hadn't heard the knock. "Hey man, it's Tom. I'm here for the TV," he called, stepping inside. The moment he entered, the creaking sound grew louder. The living room was dark, lit only by a single lamp with a cracked shade. The place smelled stale, like old wood and dust. But the strangest thing was how empty it was. There was no furniture, no couch, no decorations, just a bare wooden floor and a few scuff marks leading toward the back of the house. The TV wasn't in sight. Tom's unease grew. Something felt wrong, very wrong. He was about to turn back when he heard it. A faint, raspy breathing. It was coming from deeper inside the house. The stranger. "Hello?" Tom called out again, his voice trembling now. From the darkness of the hallway, a figure emerged. It wasn't Mitch. The man who stepped into view was middle-aged, disheveled, and filthy. His clothes were stained with something dark, and his face was partially hidden by greasy strands of hair. He stood there for a moment, staring at Tom with wide, unblinking eyes. Tom froze. I'm here for the TV? Mitch told me to come." The man didn't respond. Instead, he took a step forward. Tom's instinct screamed at him to leave, but before he could move, the man lunged. "Hey!" Tom shouted, stumbling back as the stranger grabbed for him. He turned and bolted for the door, his heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst. Behind him, he could hear the man's heavy footsteps and his ragged breathing getting closer. Tom reached the front door, yanked it open, and stumbled onto the porch. He didn't stop. He sprinted to his car, hands fumbling with his keys. The man appeared in the doorway, watching as Tom peeled out of the driveway and sped down the street. The real Mitch. Tom didn't stop driving until he was miles away. His hands were shaking so badly that he had to pull over. As he sat there, trying to calm down, his phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Mitch's number. "Hey, are you still coming? I've got the TV ready." Tom stared at the screen in disbelief. His blood turned cold. "What the hell?" he whispered. He immediately called Mitch's number. It rang twice before someone picked up. A weak, groggy voice came through the line. "Hello?" Tom froze. "Mitch? Yeah, who's this?" The voice sounded dazed, like the person had just woken up or been knocked out. "This is Tom. I just came to your house for the TV." "But..." Mitch cut him off. "Wait, what? I'm not home. My address isn't even on Harrow Street. Someone must have hacked my ad." Tom felt sick. "You're telling me that wasn't your house?" "No," Mitch replied, his voice sharper now. "I've been at the hospital all night. Someone attacked me earlier today. I never posted anything about a TV." The aftermath. Tom sat frozen in his car, his mind reeling. The man in the red house, whoever he was, had set the whole thing up. He'd used Mitch's hacked account as bait to lure people into the house. Tom had been seconds away from God knows what before he escaped. The police got involved soon after Tom's call. When they searched the house on Harrow Street, they found it abandoned, just an empty shell. There was no sign of the man who had attacked Tom, but they discovered something chilling in one of the back rooms. A bloody rope, a roll of duct tape, and a pile of old Craigslist printouts featuring electronics for sale. It turned out the man had done this before, using hacked accounts to lure buyers, rob them, or worse. The police believed Tom had gotten very lucky. Mitch, meanwhile, recovered in the hospital and eventually got his account back, but he swore off Craigslist for good. As for Tom, he never bought anything online again. He kept his cheap laptop and didn't even consider getting a TV, because every now and then, when he's alone at night, he swears he can hear the faint sound of footsteps and that low, creaking noise coming from just behind him. And that's it. 3 terrifying Craigslist stories that prove you never really know who you're dealing with online. Whether you're buying, selling, or renting, always trust your gut. Meet in public places when possible, and remember, if something feels off, it probably is. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments if you've ever had a creepy experience online. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.